Welcome, Inklings, to all new First Issues, the weekly First Issues review show where I review 18th century Yugoslavian poetry. No, there's no punchline to that joke. I'm just that tired right now. These are the new comic book First Issues for the week of March 30th, 2016. Stay tuned after the ad break for Flashback Firsty on Tomb Raider, the first Manga Firsty on Dragonball, and the first Webcomic Firstish with STARBOLTS. I'm the Archivist, now let's hop on the Marvel train with Marvel's X-Men 92, written by Chad Bowers and Chris Sims, with art by Alti Permanzia. So, this is a sequel series to the Secret Wars X-Men 92 comic. Just bringing that up right off the bat. I didn't read it. I know, blasphemous considering its sales numbers, but I didn't need to for this story, so it works. Shorthand is that there's a new Russian vampire monster thing that loves massacring people heading for Westchester, and an old friend of Logan's who's being chased by the People's Protectorates, basically Russian superhero squad, though now with the evil whiplash because, Russian, comes to the mansion to warn them. Immediately you can tell that while this uses the skin of the 90s X-Men show, the writing isn't hampered with 90s kids show politics, and can adult it up with talks like death and Nazis. Plus, they bring in newer mutants like Chamber and Monet St. Croix, as the school is reopened. Frankly, it reminds me more of the 90s X-Men titles before it became a random stew of violence and time and reality hopping. A total buy through and through, even getting me to check out the Secret Wars miniseries just to see if it's up to this caliber. Speaking of Marvel TV show tie-ins, we have Marvel's Ultimate Spider-Man Web Warriors Contest of Champions #1. Just to tack this on at the beginning, I'm not entirely sure who to credit on this. The comic itself lists Thomas Zoller as the writer, but every site I look at says Joe Caramagna. But the comic itself says that he's the one who adapted it to comic, so maybe it was on the television first, I'm not sure, but either way has no effect on this review at all. Plot is now your standard Contest of Champions style, where the Grandmaster and the Collector grab some heroes and have them duke it out. But of course, this is only round 1, and of course Spidey wins, though he is teamed with Iron Man and Hulk and both of them get dropped quickly. Yeah, that was weird. I don't have a lot to say about this issue, or really this series as a whole. I think the only reason this is a tie-in to the Ultimate Spider-Man show is because that needs a shot in the arm. Then again, it could be adapted from the show, as in a storyline for the show, but I'm fairly certain I would have heard about it. I'm sorry if I didn't. I mean, there is like 3 panels throughout this that point that this is the show Ultimate Spider-Man, not counting the art style, which is very much in tune with the show, and I do like it. But there's not really the humor that's also apparent in the show. There's no cutaways, there's no ha-ha-ha moments. It's all just basic, bland quips. So my verdict is that officially it is skippable. There's nothing new being brought in or anything. If you do have younger kids, it is definitely a good read for them, with a light, fun feel without getting too heavy or too expositional. It's straightforward action and quips the whole time. So my standard read if you have a kid sentiment applies. And just because I do cover all the number runs on this show, or as many as I can, we have Marvel's All New All Different Universe #1, with various writers and artists. This is the new Marvel handbook for the All New All Different Universe, with bios and history of Battleworld and its territories, plus newer heroes like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the updated Inhumans history, Kamala Khan, the official stuff on the Spider-Men, Jane Foster as Thor, and basically everything that's happened in the last 2 years. I'm not sure if this was just a quick one-shot to update on bios and everything, but it's wholly skippable unless of course you're someone who, like me, actually enjoys collecting the Marvel handbooks. I'm weird, I know, but it's where a lot of my baseline knowledge come from. Extremely outdated 80s handbooks from when I was a kid. So basically solely a buy based on taste that I really can't review. I mean, it's got all the info in there that you'd want, so yeah. Right, okay, so new company time. Let's go with IDW. IDW's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Deviations #1, written by Tom Waltz and art by Zach Howard. Out of all the Deviations, this was the one that I was looking most forward to. I'm a huge Turtles fan, have been since, well, forever. This is asking the best question of them all. What if the Turtles joined Shredder? Now, the problem that I know a lot of people will have with this is, unlike basically every other Deviations, this isn't based off the shows or the movies. This is a direct what-if of the storyline City Fall, which is what actually brought me into the IDW TMNT comics. In this, all 4 turtles are brainwashed into serving the Foot Clan, and I felt my heart breaking in the first 10 pages where you get the turtles hunting Splinter. Just damn. But then, there's just so much more that erupts from that moment, and buy it, period. Even on its own, you can feel the deepness of family, the heartbreak of a father being attacked by his sons, the betrayals, the friendship, and just everything that makes the IDW Turtles run so fantastic. You will not only want, but yearn to read Cityfall and see how it goes, and then it'll all spiral out from there. For the final issue of the Deviations line, while I liked the others for what they were, this one just resonated so much. Seriously, there's just so much to say, but just go out and buy it for yourself. You will not be disappointed in the slightest, no matter what, guaranteed. My guarantee, not their guarantee. Also from IDW this week is IDW's Godzilla Oblivion #1, written by Joshua Hill Fialkov, with art by Brian Chirilla and colors by Jay Photos. What has science wrought this time? Well, a few scientists create a time machine, right? And then they travel about 10 years into the future where they enter a city that has been leveled thanks to all your favorite monsters. Godzilla, Rodan, King Ghidorah, and even 2 of the larval forms of Mothra. Or the 2 larval forms of both Mothras. I'm not sure how that works anymore. Anyways, after some running and screaming for a bit, they head back through their time portal, but oh no! Our 3-headed Lord and Savior King Ghidorah crashes through after them. Dun dun dun! Okay, I do enjoy most every Godzilla I read, and this is no exception. While I can easily admit that this is only just the first issue, which typically isn't a meaty read to begin with a few exceptions, it does set up a fun monster-destroying stuff story that plays out fairly straightforward. It's good, and it's skippable if you aren't into your standard kaiju fare. But otherwise, it's most definitely worth a read, and as usual, probably a buy when all of the series is out. Next up is Image Comics Power Lines #1, words and art by Jimmy Robinson. A gangbanger and a middle-aged woman get superpowers because of a mystical line that vanished until today. That's the short end of it. I mean, the gangbanger is part of a larger crew that must be important to the story later since they did get everything laid out to us at the beginning. And the woman's son is back from Afghanistan, so there's that whole thing going. And there's an indigenous American who does know about the power line that gave them their power and is currently tracking them, watching them. But you know, basics and all that. For the most part, this is a good read. The art is good, but Jimmy Robinson's never had a problem with his art. In most any style, he's fairly good. And the premise and plot isn't bad. I mean, you have a gang member becoming superpowered, similar to the woman who got her purse stolen by his crew, getting similar powers. As a neat concept, it works, and the writing works around that. The only thing that actually stops me from being comfortable with saying it's a totally righteous buy is the awkward way some of the characters are written. Like, you have the gang member who gets the powers being a new crew member and not as gangsta as the others, while the white chick who gets her purse stolen is written to be kind of stereotypically, what's American coming to with all these Negroes running around? My son did this and that, and this America's going to hell. Plus the Martin Luther King Jr. quote on the cover, there's just a forced look at this politically message that really didn't need to make it into the book, especially since this book could have a powerful message without it being so wedged in. But otherwise, yes, totally a series you should check out. If you get hung up on the politics, I can't blame you, but you should definitely at least give this a read to see. Next on the block is Xenoscope, Satan's Hollow #1, written by Joe Bruscia and Ralph Tedesco with art by Alan Otero. Ooh, a good old-fashioned evil cult. Sweet! Okay, so Satan's Hollow is the name of a place where the satanic cult used to perform dark rituals and sacrifices. And 20 or so years later, a woman moves back into her family home in the town surrounding the hollow, after having been a part of the cult when she was 3 or so she doesn't really remember all that much. But someone has started to stir the Shadow Man, the demon contracted with the cult. So there's that going on. Yeah, honestly, there's not a lot I can say about this. It's awesome and worth a buy right now. See, one of the big problems I have with horror comics today is that they usually rely on either being a gory slasher thing, or swiping wholesale from Lovecraft, or really just wanting to make the next Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that they all seem to miss the importance of setting up the characters to be more than their archetypes. And that's one of the best things this does. While it sets up the new couple moving into an old house trope, it basically is a matter of showcasing the characters and giving us at least some form of connection with them, so when we get into the main horror aspects coming up, we'll actually care. Plus, the art is fantastic. So in short, yes, go out and buy this right now. I've got nothing else to say, it's worth a buy, and I'm definitely following it. Next up to bat is Chapterhouse Comics, Chapterhouse Archives, Captain Canuck, #1, written and drawn by Richard Cumley. A 70s comic that shows us what the 90s would have been like if Canada had become the top country in the world. Yeah, weird, but oddly awesome. So this follows their special agents, Captain Canuck and Blue Fox, on the mission to get a downed enemy aircraft. This originally came out in 1975, and if you can't tell from the title, it is a reprint, but oh man, am I interested in this series now. While it does definitely have the pacing and art of a 70s comic, if you know what that means, I think it actually holds up even today. While the writing I know won't be for everyone, as the 70s had a very different tone and style than now, the art is still strong. It's from a time before every artist needed to be so detailed. It's simple but in the best way. And honestly, there's a foreword from the editor on this that actually struck home with me. While it's not tear-jerking or anything like that, I think any comic fan would get the same understanding. In short, it's a pinnacle for its time, and since it's being reprinted, this is the opportune moment to buy and check to see what a great Canadian hero can be outside of Marvel. And finally, there's Vertigo's Suiciders, Kings of HelL.A, #1, written by Lee Vermejo, with art by Alessandro Vitti along with Lee Vermejo, with colors by Jordan Boyd and June Chung. The big one shook and turned LA into a hellhole. Well, not a literal hellhole, just the downtown Detroit kind of hellhole. So maybe it actually raised property rates in parts of LA. Sorry, enough city bashing. Anyways, the plot follows the Kings of HelL.A, or more specifically, the brother and sister who run it. But soon enough, it all comes to a head when they face a rival gang outside an old retired Suiciders shop. When I read the first Suiciders way back when, it's in one of my old first issues, but I don't think I've uploaded it yet. I might have. Who knows? Go check. The first Suiciders book was very much a rollerball kind of book, and here we're seeing a heavy Warriors vibe, but none of that's bad. Honestly, my only problem with the first Suiciders was that I wanted to see far more of the world that Suiciders was built in, and by God does this deliver that. The characters are all interesting in their own right, and the art is, well, it's a Lee Vermejo, so you know you're going to get some stunning artwork. And it's official. I've officially seen childbirth face first in every medium except real life. Thanks for that. Regardless, this is a super read, and it is definitely worth a buy. Even on just the first issue's weight alone, you'll get sucked into this world, and I hope it'll get you to go out and check out the first Suiciders. It'll especially help explain to you what a Suicider is. Basically, you got this gladiator rollerball thing going, but check that out. And that's all. That was the haul of first issues this week, and boy was it a good week. But stay tuned after the break for some Flashback Firsties, Manga Firsties, and Webcomics Firstish. And welcome back. This is Flashback Firsties, where I look back at any first issue from before the show started. Today's issue is actually suggested by Robert Headley, who, when I get the old show going, you may recognize as a frequent Read This contributor. Originally released February 2014, this is Dark Horse Comics Tomb Raider #1, written by Gail Simone, pencils by Nicholas Daniel Selma, inks by Juan Gideon, and colors by Michael Atea. I think I should start off by saying I have not played the new Tomb Raider games at all. The last one I played was the Lost Artifact, I think. But anyways, the plot to this is after the events of the game, Laura and another character have trauma for having survived the island, before Laura gets a call to another survivor in the desert where she gets swept up in a tidal wave after being warned of the Guardians. Yeah, I got nothing on the plot. While I particularly think that Laura isn't a bad character, and I like how Gail Simone added in a survivor-guilty PTSD thing to bring everyone in, it's a matter of taste. There's plenty of exposition, and the characters are bare-boned good, but we barely have a plot going before we literally just throw a tidal wave in. Overall, it isn't a bad issue, and I'm definitely going to be picking up the rest of this run, because it's interesting in its own right. The art is also on point, with Laura looking like her current character model looks like. And it's always nice to see her with her climbing pick on her hip. I didn't know that became her new signature weapon, or is that just pushed in this comic? So this is definitely worth a read. and I may be covering this comic as well as several other video game comics for Honest Comic Trailers in November for Extra Life. I'll keep you posted on that. Next, we have our first new section, Manga Firsties, originally published in Weekly Shonen Jump starting November 20th, 1984. This is Akira Toriyama's Dragonball. Well, to be fair, this is Chapter 1 of Dragonball, Bloomers and the Monkey King. A mysterious boy who lives alone and has a tail is nearly hit by a woman in a car while he's dragging two fish twice his size across the street. He attacks her car, thinking it's a monster, so she shoots him in the head. And that's only the start of this series. The girl then finds out that he has one of the mystical orbs she's been looking for, so when she collects all 7, they will grant her a wish. So both of them get questing together to collect the Dragon Balls! The dragons what? Why yes, Dragon Ball Z is a sequel to this series, which I know is far more popular because of the anime, which I think everyone on the internet has at least heard one diatribe about. But this isn't that. This is actually very far from that. Dragon Ball is a lighthearted comedy adventure. Son Goku is just one step above Wild Boy, solely because of a time he had friendly Grandpa Gohan looking after him. But within this, it's clearly setting up the style and pacing for the series, as well as giving us a very bare minimum of Goku's abnormal abilities, like super strength, super speed, and a prehensile tail. He's also mostly immune to bullets. And it also introduces the second main character of the group, the kinda horny teenage girl, Bulma, who's got no problem shooting someone in the head or flashing her panties to get her way. I know this was 1984 and all, but it's still refreshing to see an unabashedly bitchy teen not afraid of her sexuality or afraid to use it as a tool. But of course, Goku doesn't even know what a woman is, so that basically counters most of her preconceived notions of how to get around in this world. Also, quick thing I never noticed is that even in translation, they keep Goku's speech very much simple and, well, dumb. It's something that mangas do a lot, using a different dialect to push general traits, in the same way that accents are used in English media. This is my first Manga Firsty, and I do have to bring up that I am biased. I've been a huge fan of the Dragon Ball franchise that, yes, I did enter into because of Dragon Ball Z. God, that was so long ago. But this is nowhere close to that series. While there is action, this is not a fighting-based book. This is, again, a lighthearted, funny book about finding the Dragon Balls. Something that actually rarely ever actually happens on DBZ. Not to mention, it plays far more into the mystical side since it is a very loose adaptation of Journey into the West. Short answer, it is completely awesome, and if you are interested in mangas at all, this is a must-own. In fact, I actually just picked up my Volume 1 at Walmart the other day. Now, I'm not saying that's where you need to go to get your copy, just that it was kind of really awesome seeing a fairly decent selection of manga at Walmart. They still had garbage for comics, but regardless, go and buy this. Volume 1 at least is worth it. After that, you'll be hooked. And for the final news segment, Webcomic Firstish, I'll be checking out the first 20 or so issues of any given webcomic. Today's webcomic originally came out in 2008, and that is STARBOLTS by Chris Ferriolo. In full disclosure, I'm friends with Chris, so it's the first webcomic that came to mind. However, I am going to be as impartial as I can be. I'll be fair. STARBOLTS is a series that primarily focuses on the titular team, the STARBOLTS, in a very traditional superhero team sense. Well, in a traditional sense in that there is a team and there is a status quo that gets poked at a lot with action throughout, though the art style does hamper it for said action. But I'll get to that in a minute. What works so well on the writing front is that it's very reflective of the time it's being written, with jabs or references to characters and the larger world of comic book fandom. Which makes sense because you can also check out Chris's comic review work on Comic Showcase here on YouTube. Hey, he's got better editing than me. Lousy people who can have faces. And you get some great character moments of this understanding of the source material and a love for the medium. But here's where I know some people will be turned off. It's sprite-based artwork, utilizing original low-bit sprites, though you'll see some familiar faces in it. But like most webcomics, the art only got better through time. I mean, here's the first one ever. It's not bad. And then here's a snippet of the current art direction. You can see that over the past several years, he's really grown into his own, and the characters by and large have been fleshed out, including some non-pixel art up over on his DeviantArt. So in short, there's no reason not to check out all 300 plus panels of this, or pages of this. The writing is fun and great for comic book fans, and if you don't mind the pixel art, then there's nothing holding you back from enjoying this. Links to STARBOLTS Productions, the main website, as well as his DeviantArt where you can find the first 20 or so installments, as well as other bits, are in the description below. And that's all for this week. If you agree or disagree, or have a suggestion for any of the Flashback segments, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at BradleyNephilim, and like the Archivist on Facebook. Again, all the links down below in the description. And like and share this video around. You can make the channel grow by sharing around the show. I know, I'm trying to work on a tagline. Anyways, I'm the Archivist, and stay golden, Inklings.